Right, we have one item on the agenda for today, and it is a presentation of the first quarter 2025 internal audit activities. I will turn it over.
Excuse me,
Ms.
you did not
Garofoli?
approve the minutes? The minutes from the last.
You're right, I don't have any agenda. Thank you. So I will restate that the first item is the approval of the minutes from the May 6th, 2025 meeting. Are there any corrections, changes? Not. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Sleesman.
Second, Elder.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the minutes stand approved. Now we'll go on to Mr. Garofoli.
Sure. Good morning, Mayor Weiss, members of the Audit Committee, the leadership group, and folks that are online. We're here to present the results of the first quarter activities for the Internal Audit Department. Our agenda. We'll start out with results of our gap to conformance analysis with the new global internal audit standards that were put into effect in January 2025. I'll say a quick word about the internal audit charter. We've proposed a best practice model internal audit charter, and that particular document is going through some final review with the audit committee and management, and we hope to bring that to the board for approval very, very soon. Steven Zimmerman to my left, our senior auditor, or I'm sorry, our audit manager, is going to go over the Quality Assurance and Improvement Program. Molly O'Donnell to my right, our lead auditor, will share the rail car replacement and infrastructure audit activities, and then we will rotate the first quarter activities among staff with the projects they've completed during the quarter. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Steven Zimmerman.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning, Audit Chair Weiss, members of the Audit Committee, members of management. My name is Steven Zimmerman. I'm the Audit Manager in the Internal Audit Department. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the Quality Assurance and Improvement Program from the Internal Audit Department, which is implemented through the Global Internal Audit Standards, through the International Professional Practices Framework, through the Institute of Internal Auditors. As a reminder, a Quality Assurance and Improvement Program, or QAIP for short, enables an evaluation of an internal audit activity's conformance with the global internal audit standards. The program assesses efficiency and effectiveness of the internal audit activity and identifies opportunity for improvement. For several quarters, we've been talking about the implementation of new key performance indicators, and I'm happy to present the first quarter where we have results for our KPIs. The KPIs are organized into 4 different topic areas. They include audit delivery and efficiency, staff development, client relations, and issue tracking and follow-up. I'll remind the board that our audit year goes from March through February, so the Q1 results are meant to reflect March, April, and May. Since it is now mid-May, the Q1 results represent most of the quarter, but not the entirety of the quarter. As we go through these presentations into the future, quarter results might update slightly to reflect the entire quarter's set of data. Going through the first topic of audit delivery and efficiency, we've got 3 metrics measuring this area. The first being on delivering the audit plan. This is a measure of audits completed against audits planned. Our target for Q1 is 15%, and in Q1 we're at about 5%. I will say that later in the presentation we will share with you a graph that shows the project completed, projects in progress, and projects not started. At this stage in the quarter, we have about half of our projects are in progress, with a number of them already in the reporting phase and several exit conferences scheduled for this month. So I expect the Internal Audit Department to build momentum as the quarters progress and to make positive growth in this metric in later quarters.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you repeat what the target is for that?
The target for Q1 is 15%.
Okay, thanks.
The next metric is audit schedule adherence. It's meant to be a percentage of the audits that are greater than 30 days past schedule completion. Really what this is meant to measure is how well are we projecting how long an audit takes to complete, and are we sticking to that timeline. So for example, if we say an audit will go from May to September, if the audit is in October or beyond, we've gone past our schedule completion date. Our target is to keep that below 20%. In Q1, we're a little higher than that. We're at 32%. That does include some carryover for 2024, and we have changed the methodology by which we estimate how long an audit takes to complete to account for potential delays as a result of the different review milestones, and also we'll hope to, as I'll allude to in a moment, get a reporting timeline down as well. The third metric, audit report timeliness, the average days from the end of fieldwork to the report publication date with a target of less than 60 days. We're currently at 120. I want to talk a little bit about what it means to be in the reporting phase and the different activities that take place to get an audit report out into the final status. So at the end of field work, when we've done all of our controls testing, we'll have an internal meeting where we review the results and decide whether or not the field work is complete and we can progress to the reporting phase. That's the start of the timeline. From there, the audit team will draft an internal audit report. We'll review it internally. There'll be revisions. And once the report is complete, we'll schedule the exit conference. Sometimes an exit conference can take upwards of 30 days to schedule due to availability of team members. We also often include it's our norm to include DGMs in our meetings, which can also further delay the scheduling. Then once the exit conference is held, management is entitled to 15 calendar days to do their report, their management response, which we include in our final report. And then once we receive that management response, we have to process it, put it into the final report. Sometimes there's some discussion if there's revisions required. So looking at just the timeline from exit conference to management response, that's 45 of our 60. So what's our strategy to get this number down? Well, one of the things we're looking at is how can we have different tasks occurring concurrently so that we can keep progress moving and be more agile in our deployment of the audit reports without waiting until we completed the project. So we don't have to wait for the audit report to be 100% reviewed and complete before we schedule the exit. So we're looking at ways that we can improve efficiency without compromising on quality. So I'm looking forward to progress on this metric in forthcoming quarters. The next topic area is staff development. This includes training hours. So our commitment is to have all of our staff accrue up to 40 hours by the end of the year in increments of 10 per quarter. This is in alignment with the flagship certification for a certified internal auditor who's required to report 40 continuing professional education credits per year. Different certifications have different reporting requirements, but that's our baseline of 40. And it's certainly comprehensive of all the different number of credits that different certifications require. We've actually exceeded our target for Q1 up to 20. Now, the reason for that is because we participate in a lot of training through our local professional organizations, and their training year is from fall through spring. They do a recess in the summer. So we'll expect this to slow down a little bit in Q2 and Q3 as we'll do more webinars or ad hoc training, but we expect to hit our target by Q4 when the training session resumes. The next metric is certifications achieved, with a goal to have all 8 FTEs on the team with some certification, whether it be certified internal auditor, certified fraud examiner, certified information certified systems auditor, or certified public accountant. We're at 5 FTEs currently, and we have 1 auditor who is in the process of achieving their certification. This metric will be static from quarter to quarter. It's not often that a new staff member will get a certification, but we wanted to include it on our metrics as a commitment both to the board as well as to our team members that we want to support the certification of our team. The next metric is client relations, which is measured through the client satisfaction surveys that we send at the end of every engagement. We measure our client satisfaction surveys on a Likert scale, so from strongly disagree to strongly agree, across about 10 questions that include things such as, was the audit clearly communicated to me? Was the duration of the audit appropriate? Did this provide value to me and my organization? Were the auditors professional and courteous? And did the auditor consider my input throughout the process? We measure satisfied as either a 4 or a 5, which means they are satisfied or very satisfied, so someone who's neutral on a survey is not going to contribute to this metric. In Q1, we're below our target. Our target was 80%. I will say that the population of data is very small. We've only completed 5% of our projects for the year, and we did receive at least 1 response from every survey topic area that we sent out, so at least 1 member of management for every audit provided a response. But of course, we don't get responses from every member of management. So if we looked at the survey results from last year, I would say that 57% is a little bit of an outlier, not necessarily what I would expect as the year progresses. So again, I expect positive growth in this area as the year progresses. The final metric, topic area, is issue tracking and follow-up. This is at the end of every engagement. Once we've issued our recommendations, we track implementation of those recommendations. We do that through 2 areas. One is periodic status updates, where we get frequent updates from members of management on progress they're making on implementing our recommendations, issues they may be encountering, changes that might need to take place to fit the business need. Our goal is to keep the target of less than 60 days on average for those status updates, and I'm happy to report that we got the average down to 24 days. This is one of those scenarios where the active measurement spurred a change. So when we transitioned to our new audit management system, the way that we tracked status updates had to change. We've implemented a new process for ensuring that we get timely status updates from audit clients. So this metric of measurement of 24 days is much lower than it might have been last quarter. So we're going to keep that momentum going forward. Our goal is for every, internally, to have a standard of 30 days between updates. Some projects take longer to implement, where we might allow 60 or up to 90 days, but the goal is 30, and then the target of 60 allows for timing differences where, if I measured this 23 days ago, it might have been 1 day. Measured when we did take the measurement, it was 24 days. So very positive growth for us. And then the last metric there is issue closure. So once a member of management says that they've implemented a recommendation, that turns back over to the internal audit department. It's our responsibility to check to see if the recommendation was implemented according to the spirit of the recommendation, satisfies the business objective. Usually clients provide some evidence that the recommendation was satisfied. If not, we can solicit that evidence, and then we've been assigning out to the different team members responsible for the audit to verify closure. The target is 100% of audits that are audit recommendations that are eligible for closure to be closed. At the time that we took this measurement, 80% were closed. That means 20 audit recommendations are still open where they've been implemented, but we need to verify closure. This is a metric where, again, with timing, we might recommend at the end of the year potentially dropping that target to 90%, because I always expect there'll be maybe 1 or 2 that are open. So I don't know if we'll ever hit 100, but next quarter, again, more growth towards closer to the target. Before I move on from the KPIs, are there any questions from the board? I'd be happy to answer them.
Just one real, or actually two, but very quick questions. On the client satisfaction, is every client surveyed?
Yes, so
Okay.
everyone who is included in the audit, the exit conference, which means it goes from the subject matter expert up to the DGM, will receive a client satisfaction survey.
Okay. And is the survey done sort of after resolution of any recommendations, or is it still mid-process, or does it vary?
Yeah, the survey is sent out no earlier than the end of the first exit conference, but sometimes it might be after management response. And usually it completes up to 3 or 4 weeks after that time frame. So usually we've had the exit conference, we had a chance to talk about the report. So as far as resolution, a lot of resolutions occur in the exit conference. That's where we like to have spirited debate, intellectual discussion on the audit topics and solutions. So yeah, I'd say that we've had the chance to hash that information out before they take the survey.
Great, thank you.
Just to follow up to that, you said the sample was small. Like, how small, or how many people does that 57% represent?
I want to say there's 4 audits that had a result of a survey, and of those 4 audits, I think we had 6 or 7 responses. So it's
That's helpful. I just wanted to put it in context.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any no other questions? I'll proceed. As Tony alluded to earlier, I'm also going to share an update on our readiness assessment results. So in 2024, when the draft global internal audit standards were presented to internal auditors across the world, they provided a resource for internal audit departments that were going to start adopting the new standards in 2025. And they provided what was called a readiness assessment, or a gap analysis. And the purpose of the gap analysis is for a department that is already in conformance with the existing internal audit standards, which our department was, what activities might you need to implement to now be in compliance with the changes, the new, it's basically the delta from the old standards to the new. When we did that analysis in 2024, we identified 11 discrete action plans for implementation. At this stage, 8 are implemented. However, 3, we are going to pause pending charter approval. These are areas where the language that's included in the charter could impact how we approach the implementation. So we're going to wait until the charter is approved before we proceed with implementation. We've seen this chart before. What I'm going to comment on is the ones that have changed since last quarter. So the first one is IIA Standard 3.1 competency. The action plan was to maintain a central repository for tracking training, certifications, and CPEs, and to formalize our existing training program. So we've done just that. We now are tracking all of the training and CPEs on a shared tracking form on our shared drive here at the RTA. And so when we do group trainings or individual trainings, we're keeping that updated. One, it helps facilitate the tracking of the KPIs. And then two, it's important for us to evidence that our team is receiving training per the standards. And then additionally, we've taken our existing training program and documented it. So we have now a pathway from day 1 through day 3 for a staff auditor, or day 1 through year 3, I should say, as a staff auditor, years 4 and 5 for staff auditors too. A lead auditor, IT auditor, different kinds of training pathways. We've got it documented in a training plan. So again, existing training program, but fully documented. The other new implementation is 5.2 protection of information. The action plan was to develop procedures to codify existing department standards for requesting, storing, accessing, and sharing confidential information. And then we also reviewed and enhanced our annual statements of confidentiality to match the new language in the global internal audit standards. So we've done just that. We've taken the existing standards that we had for confidentiality and formalized it into a document that we'll train our team on. And then in February of this year, all of our auditors signed the new updated statements of confidentiality that are in alignment with the new global internal audit standards language on confidentiality. New on this slide, well, the 9.2 internal audit strategy to develop a strategy that looks forward to the next 3 to 5 years. We're saying that that's pending charter approval. Guidance on what the charter looks like will help in developing our strategy. 10.2, human resources management. We have developed a formal recruitment and retention policy. Our recruitment plan looks similar to the standard progress for any hiring at the RTA, but we've added elements that include the unique posting resources that we utilize, such as local and national job sites related to internal auditors, some of the qualities that we look for in candidates, as well as documenting some of the success that we've had in participating in internships and rotational programs to bring resources into our department that can learn about the organization through internal audit. And then finally, 11.3, communicating results, and 14.4, recommendations and action plans, additionally pending charter approval. So those are all the updates on our readiness assessment. Again, I'll pause if there's any questions on any of these items.
I don't see any. You can proceed.
Hearing none, I'll now turn it over to Molly O'Donnell, who will give you the update on the railcar replacement and infrastructure audit activities.
Good morning, Mayor Weiss, members of the Audit Committee, and General Manager Birdsong Terry. The Audit Committee and the Board has asked us to have a special focus on the railcar replacement program within our presentation. This includes the contract with Siemens Mobility, Inc. for the manufacturing delivery of 24 light rail cars, as well as the 2 options that have been approved by the board for 6 and 18 cars. For the contract with Siemens Mobility, Inc., for pre-award contract compliance, we reviewed the procurement process, and we also completed a pre-award Buy America review for both the base contract as well as both options. At this point, we are in the post-award contract compliance phase. We're reviewing project management and deliverables, looking at the contract administration, including change orders, and reviewing invoices. This is our typical slide format for our projects, providing our objective and scope for the contract compliance audit. As an update, assembly has begun in Sacramento on the first 3 cars, and first article inspections are still underway. The Audit Committee and the Board has asked us to take a close look at change orders and spend some time evaluating them. On the right is a change order log that's maintained by our procurement department, who's also very involved in evaluating change orders. And there have been no updates to this change order log since we last presented it. On the left is a sum of the total contract amount to date. So the original contract amount was $163.9 million. There's been $144.4 million of change orders to date, bringing us to a total contract amount of $308.3 million. This is the potential change order log that is maintained by the project management team to keep track of those potential change orders. So potential change orders may or may not become change orders. So this shares a little evolution in terms of how we bring forth change orders. As I said before, we're reviewing payments to Siemens. So this is a summary of payments to Siemens in RTA's financial management systems. Including change orders, the total value of the contract is at $308.3 million. As of May 1st, 2025, we have paid $83.2 million, which is 27% of the contract amount. There are several other contracts that are involved in the bigger rail car replacement program. On this slide, the port connector construction is currently under audit, but other projects on this list will be under audit when the project reaches the construction phase. We, as an internal audit department, recently went out to tour several of these sites that are in the design phase to be prepared for the construction audit phase. Okay. The FTA has assigned a project management oversight consultant. The responsibilities of that consultant are to determine whether the project is on time, within budget, in conformance with design and quality criteria, in compliance with all applicable federal requirements, and constructed to improved plans and specifications. As we've shared before, that PMOC has also audited the internal audit department. They looked at our pre-award Buy America review for the base contract, as well as our pre-award Buy America review for the 6-car option. We expect that they may conduct another review of our pre-award Buy America audits for subsequent options. The project management oversight consultant is also holding us to the standard of intermediate audits and will likely conduct reviews of our post-delivery Buy America reviews once the cars are delivered. The PMOC is Ellis Gallegos. They have monthly meetings with the project management team and the procurement department, and our internal audit management is actively engaged in those meetings. Any questions on the rail car replacement program?
Hi, Trustee Elder. I guess, and thank you for the presentation. I guess can you help me understand what exactly are we auditing with respect to the rail car program? And like, for example, you had a slide here about the change order logs and your evaluation of those. What exactly are we evaluating? What are the metrics that are being used? Or is it more so of managing and just seeing where we are in the project? Or is it, managing or looking at the accounting? Explain what exactly we're auditing.
Well, let me address the question about change orders. So the procurement department has a policy where any change order greater than $50,000 is subject to review by the change order review committee. Mm-hmm. And we are standing members of that committee. So regardless if we're actively auditing a contract, if there's a change order for any of those projects that is greater than $50,000, mm-hmm. we are engaged, as well as the legal department, the procurement department, our budget office, and others, to evaluate a change order. So anything greater than $50,000.
And that's before it essentially comes to the board?
That is before it, it's actually, as it is a proposed change order, mm-hmm. before it goes to the general manager and before it goes to the board.
Got it.
Okay, so what we're looking for is compliance with the procurement policies and GCRTA laws and regulations.
Okay.
Okay. And then with regards to other audits, so as Molly alluded to, as some of these contracts are moving from design to construction, okay, we have plans to include those construction projects in our audit program. They were approved in our recent 2025 audit plan approved by the board. And as Molly said, we've begun planning for those. We've taken tours of each of those projects, walkthroughs of the buildings, learning about risks and controls, working with Mike Schipper's group and his project managers, working with Melinda D'Angelo's group and her contract administrators. So ready and prepared to do those audits.
Got it. And we're really looking at compliance and,
Well, we're looking for, we will identify what risks that we need to address within an audit. So, you know, the risk could be compliance, the risk can be meeting specification, the risk could be change orders, the risk could be you know, a whole host of issues. So each contract is taken on their own with a customized risk assessment that we will include customized audit procedures for.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Just one question on the, and I'm not sure I heard, the actual assembly. When, we have not actually gone out to see the rail cars being assembled yet?
We've our team has taken several trips to Siemens, and then the project management team, contractors, and some of our quality assurance teams, you know, within the authority, have all been out to the factory. So there are 3 frames that, you know, that are in progress at this point, and different phases of that what Molly referred to as first article inspection, moving forward in their manufacturing process.
Still early in that assembly stage, sounds like.
It's early, but to see our frames, you know, on the floor is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen 3 frames on the floor.
Tony, if I can,
Please.
if I can ask, to smack it a little bit. Just curious, can you send the board the photos that you had texted the DGM team? They are pretty exciting. It's like seeing a shell of a train. It's hard to explain unless you have gone to see it in person, but I do think the pictures are worth looking at, and that way you have a better idea of what we're kind of addressing every time. It is a work in progress. We are not there yet, as Tony and Molly mentioned, but we're getting there. And every trip that anyone takes, but especially the audit team, comes in front of me as well. So we keep a good kind of knowledge base of who's going out where. And I will say that the audit team does a great job of documenting all of their trip kind of happenings and progress. And as soon as they, even if it's not a train, if it's a paratransit van or if it's a 40-footer, I usually get a text from Tony, and we all kind of drool over the vehicle. As unsexy as that sounds, it's pretty interesting.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I'm going to kick off our discussion now of the first quarter activities. So the first quarter report, this presentation will mirror elements of the printed report that'll come at a forthcoming meeting, but we'll discuss things such as completed projects, projects in progress, our continuous audit program, special requests and emergent issues, our internal audit coordination, outstanding follow-up, other projects, and staff training. We implemented this chart a few quarters ago, so just to give the board a reminder of the spread of audit coverage for the 2025 plan year based on the different categorization of audit areas. So you can see the distribution of audits and our risk coverage based on whether they're internal audits, contract audits, IT audits, our continuous audit program, the external audit coordination we do, advisory engagements where we might collaborate with management on a work product, as well as our railcar audit program. This is the audit plan progress for the first quarter. So you can see there are completed projects, the projects in progress divide into whether they're in planning and risk assessment, field work, or reporting, and then the projects that are not yet started. So at first quarter to have, between the completed projects and the projects in progress, half active is very positive, and we expect as the year progresses, more and more of these audits are going to transition through the continuum. The green bar will get longer, the orange bar will get shorter, and we'll be achieving our audit plan. I will now turn it over to Laura Crawshaw, who will talk about her completed projects.
Thank you, Stephen. Good morning, Audit Chair Weiss, members of the Audit Committee, General Manager Birdsong Terry. My name is Laura Crawshaw, I'm Staff Auditor 2, and I'll talk about my completed projects for the quarter. So first was the Customer Service Center at Tower City. Our objective was to perform a 100% count of all cash and fare cards within the Customer Service Center, and Kylie also updated the 2023 fare card sales analysis. Our scope was the vault and teller drawer contents, which was performed on January 23rd, 2025, and then the updated fare card order analysis with 2024 data. This audit was under the audit theme of financial health, and our results were satisfactory. So management successful practices. The vault and teller drawers reconciled to their consignment within $1, and management implemented our recommendation for a reduced consignment. Evaluation of 2024 orders confirms the consignment is still appropriate relative to sales, and there are no recommendations.
Quick question before we continue on completed projects. What is the highest rating? Is satisfactory? Okay.
Okay, so next is travel and expense reimbursement. Our objective is to review all trip reports and travel expense reimbursements for compliance with policy and procedures. We review 100% of trips and expenses. Trips are compliant with policy. Any trip reports we get that are non-compliant are returned to travelers for correction and re-reviewed by us prior to processing. Next project was an audit of the Transit Ambassadors program. Our objective was to provide assurance over the program, including that resources are deployed strategically, processes and procedures are in place, and stated program objectives are achieved. The scope included transit ambassador duties, training, and data entries made from July 2023 through June 2024. This project was under the audit theme of customer experience, and our results were marginally unsatisfactory with recommendations for management. Some management successful practices, schedules and deployment of resources are well defined. The system for referrals is effective for addressing issues identified in the field, and they have very active tracking of ambassador observations. So our recommendations were some improvements to training programs, enforcement of ambassador compliance with data entry requirements, and improvements to the customer interaction processes to improve quantity, quality, and measurement of success. So I will turn it over to Kylie Sanciola to talk about her completed projects for the quarter.
Can I ask one quick
yeah.
question? The data entry requirements, is that preparing reports and so on?
So they go out in teams of 2 typically, and one will carry a tablet, and they will submit a form that captures GPS data and other information with their observations, and that goes to a centralized database. So that's how they capture their observations, and that provides for data analysis as well.
Thank you.
Good. Just a quick question, sorry. The last bullet, can you elaborate a little bit more on the improvements to customer interaction?
So they had a lot of success with the data entry fulfilling the data entry requirements that they had set out. So we recommended to expand that and to give them a reason to initiate customer interactions, and then expand the measurement of that.
Okay, so the data entry was satisfied. It was the next step in trying to expand the program? Okay, if I can ask to maybe add an additional bullet on this slide just for recording purposes so that the team, and this is me asking, I'm not saying that operations doesn't know as I stare down Doc, but making sure that clarification is there to be able to expand upon what we already do. Because when I read it, my concern is that the data is not being complied with. You know what I mean? And so perhaps the additional conversation, I'm thinking, is there a plan to be able to have that conversation not only with transit police and operations, but maybe customer experience? Because that's what it sounds like there's an ask for. Is that correct?
Yeah, and a lot of that discussion happened at the exit conference, so things
Okay.
are already happening.
Okay, good. Thank you.
We met with transit police in our exit conference, and we had a full discussion on it.
And then similarly, can you expand on the training programs as well? Because I think similar to what we just discussed, it kind of appears like, are we doing it? Are we satisfactory in some areas and there are just opportunities for improvement in others? And if so, what specifically are those?
Yeah, so they have robust training being in transit police, but there were some items in the job description that they didn't have formalized training for, such as like navigating the system or the fare structure. So we recommended to include things like that in the formal training program.
Okay, and have those conversations already been had with the okay.
I just want to clarify that when we present a completed project to the board here, in all cases, we've had our exit conference, we've requested management response, we've accepted that management response, and then published the report. So when you guys are receiving this information, the management team is already starting to take corrective action to implement our recommendations. So I just want to provide you that assurance.
That's really helpful to understand, and I think just to expand on what General Manager Birdsong Terry has mentioned, in having those conversations, I think it's great, but we also want to make sure that we're having cross-department conversations because one department may be able to lend, more expertise or opinion in one area, such as the customer experience piece and the transit police piece as well. So just making sure we continue to do that. So thank you.
Okay. Back to Kylie then. Thank you, Laura. Good morning, Audit Chair Weiss, members of the committee, General Manager Birdsong Terry. I will be sharing a couple of completed projects with you today. Our first one will be body-worn cameras. The objective was to evaluate the use, administration, and impact of body-worn cameras in transit police operations. The scope included body-worn camera policies, training programs, storage and retention, and the review processes. The audit theme fell under community impact and employee investment. The results were marginally unsatisfactory with recommendations for management. Management successful practices included an overall well-defined and organized processes and procedures governing body cameras. Implementation of body-worn cameras build trust from the community and provide accountability and support for our officers. Our recommendations were for enhancements for policy-based on the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, also known as CALEA, standards and peer agency best practices, develop standardized methodology for supervisory footage review to ensure random sampling outcomes, correct records retention implementation for evidence library, review user access assignments, improve training materials, record keeping, and implementation of refresher training, investigate unwieldy footage redaction software for alternate solutions. Our next completed project is rail cleanliness. The objective is to document GCRTA processes for cleaning rail vehicles and rail station facilities. The scope was rail vehicles and passenger facilities activities in 2023 and 2024. The audit theme fell under customer experience. The results were unsatisfactory with recommendations for management. Management successful practices included, as a result of our audit, transit police performed a safety risk assessment to assess safety risk for frontline janitorial staff. The Windermere Station Clean Team fills a valuable niche in keeping trains clean while in service. The Railcar Vinyl Seat Replacement Program has improved customer experience and perception of cleanliness. The recommendations include coordinate transit police and frontline staff at stations to mitigate safety risk and support operational objectives, perform a safety risk assessment for frontline staff, implement and update standard operating procedures for new and changed cleaning processes for vehicles. Additionally, to enhancements to passenger facility cleaning strategies, including improving inventory processes, including improved personal protective equipment, right-sizing schedules and task lists, improving record keeping of completed work, creating a dedicated trouble call team, and hiring more staff.
Thank you. Before we continue,
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add, management elected not to pursue the last two recommendations on this slide because they thought that implementing the first three recommendations would get at the risk that's at the heart of the last two recommendations, and we as an internal audit department accepted that. We will verify this during next audit year with a follow-up audit.
thank you. I would like to go back to the body cam completed project. I guess, can you summarize for me what we're doing well in this area and just kind of the specifics about what needs to be done here?
So oh,
Yeah.
did you want to?
No, go ahead.
Sorry. I think the general theme from our report is that if you look holistically at the body-worn camera program, it's well organized, it has well-defined objectives and processes and procedures. But then within the implementation of different elements, we had that list of, and if you could go to the recommendation slide, different areas where we can tighten things up, such as enhancements to the body-worn camera policy, establishing more of a standardized methodology when we look at supervisory reviews. So Transit Police has implemented a process where they provide quality assurance over Transit Police officer interactions with the public by reviewing different footage throughout the course of a month for all officers. Mm-hmm. But how they select that footage to ensure that it's a random sample could be improved. Records implementation is looking at how long are we keeping videos in our evidence library, which is the database of all the videos. And you don't want to keep records for too long because you're supposed to purge them according to the records retention, and you certainly don't want to delete them before that records retention timeline applies. Mm-hmm. When we looked at this data, it wasn't that footage was being deleted too soon. Most of it was in there for too long. So they just need to correct that configuration. User access assignments, so identity and access management, who has access to review video footage? Do people have the access required to do the work that they need to be successful? Training materials, they obviously had a robust training and implementation process when this was implemented. However, it needs a transition from implementation to maintenance. So an ongoing refresher training to ensure that officers continue to know how to operate the cameras is what that's getting at. And then this was the last one was a request from Transit Police. There's a redaction software footage that's sort of challenging to use. There's better options out there on the marketplace, and how can they pursue those? So hopefully that was helpful. I'll give a little more context.
It was stock software. It came with cameras, and it's very cumbersome.
Yeah. Well, your rundown was very helpful to me to understand, and I'm sure for the public as well. Do we have a timeline set in which the recommendations should be either just evaluated and a decision is made to accept them or not, or to go into a different direction?
So, Trustee Elder, every recommendation, we meet with management, and we agree upon an estimated implementation date. And then, certainly those could be revised if circumstances, come up, unforeseen circumstances. And then our audit department will go out and evaluate those implementations.
And is there a process, and not only just for this project, but I think for all the projects, if, based on those conversations that you're having with the DGM about timeline, to the extent that there needs to be additional time needed to address, whatever the decided upon method is that something that is run by audit as well, or is that just housed within the department, or?
No, it's almost a negotiation. You know, there's a reasonableness standard.
Okay.
You know, unforeseen conditions, like I said
Sure.
before, and you know, what's in the best interest of the authority. In some cases, you know, the risks that we've identified may no longer be applicable. So, you know, no need to implement. You know, so different scenarios will dictate the different changes to implementation.
Okay.
One related, oh,
Sorry, just to piggyback on that for a second, Tony, if you just want to touch on the software where the notes are added in for the manager for the particular projects. I'll give an example. Tony and I also meet to go through, and we usually red flag. So give an example, if there's an issue and resources are an issue, and it's agreed upon between that department and audit that an additional position, I'm just making this up, is needed to be able to address whatever the issue is. Tony and I, when we do meet and go through just as a check-in, hey, this one is taking a little longer, perhaps it's in HR, perhaps it's in finance, you know, perhaps it's in legal, wherever it is. And if there is a question mark as to it's taking longer than originally planned, I will be able to assist and provide that gentle nudge to be able to ask, but typically that is a negotiation in time, not on process, because it's owned by the actual department to make sure that they can handle what the actual resolution is. And I just wanted to make that note because audit is not management. Management is separate so that they can own the process and that you have the oversight by audit to make recommendations. But if we do see that it's getting a little unwieldy or something's maybe being pushed through the finance, I'll beat up on Raj for a little bit, the finance process through, you know, rollbacks on funding or whatever it is, we will have that additional conversation to reprioritize to make sure that something that is really important doesn't just fall off the radar because it got moved by another party that wasn't involved in the original conversation.
If I could add, Ms. Birdsong-Terry, so the phrase in our internal audit charter and within our global audit standards is that the internal audit department functionally reports to the board and administrative reports to this general manager CEO. She just described that dotted line, that administrative reporting, to where, you know, if we need some support to work with management to move along a recommendation and or whatever we need to move along our audits, you know, so as India said, you know, we have a standing one-on-one meeting and we have those discussions.
real quickly, two quick things. One, I'll put the plug in for the redaction software. We recently changed, and it saved hours. It's amazing how long it takes to redact, so it's great to see. And then I should know the answer to this, but CALIA, I think there are, if my recollection is correct, there are kind of standards of CALIA certification. Do you recall where we, I mean, and if you don't, then we can get it later. And it's probably a question for Chief Jones, but where we are CALIA certified, and do you know which level?
You know, I don't know the level, but I know that the transit police had quite an initiative to review and conform with CALIA standards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can find out, you know, for you.
Yeah, I'd just be curious, but just for those that aren't involved in this, to be CALIA certified is quite an undertaking.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's a couple percent points of all of the law enforcement agencies across the country, so it's pretty impressive. So, okay, thank you.
I have a, sorry, I have a question on the cleanliness, rail cleanliness. Is that, can we go there? So I just wanted to spend like a couple minutes on this one because I know it's so important for our riders. And I really appreciate this being on the list and you guys addressing it with all this care and the recommendations. I see a lot of recommendations here. So I guess I just wanted to understand them a little better, especially this piece about, you know, maybe we don't need to hire more staff because we're going to be compensating in other areas. So I was hoping you could maybe talk a little bit more about, you know, what are some of the processes that might be changing, or what does it mean to right-size schedules and tax lists or update standard operating procedures, just to give us an idea of what are the recommendations? Is it more frequency? Is it a different tactic? I just don't know how to interpret this. Thanks.
All right, so part of our testing included our auditor actually going out with the teams that are performing the cleaning activities, observing the task list and the schedules and how they move from station to station. And one of the challenges that we identified during that review is that the scope of the schedule and the task list was too large to complete for the resources assigned. And one of the challenges that the janitors will find themselves in is, well, now I need to prioritize what tasks can I get complete if I'm going to go from station to station. So the idea was, well, right-size those schedules. How can we identify what are the most critical high priority items that need to be cleaned if you didn't have enough time or resources to complete, and then meant to tie in with the potentially hiring more staff. Or the reason we recommended the trouble call team was many times janitors might be able to complete their scope of work, but there was bodily fluids expressed at a station, and now they have to ride 3-4 stations away on the red line to get to that location to clean it. A trouble call team would be able to maybe have a dedicated vehicle respond to those incidents, clean that so that the core team could continue their activities. But I think there was some concerns with resource availability, budgetary concerns. So operations is implementing the first 3 recommendations. So making sure that janitors have the inventory to clean, whether that be the gloves that they wear or the cleaners that they utilize, so that they can complete their activities efficiently where they're at. Having those right-sized schedules and task lists so they know what to prioritize and they can complete a day's work. And then better tracking of where activities are occurring, whether that be through our maintenance management system or another solution. If those 3 activities are successful, we'll do a follow-up audit in 2026 to determine whether or not they were successful, and if not, we'll revisit the topic of the last 2, the dedicated trouble call team and the hiring of more staff. The other one about the updated standard operating procedures. One is that we have a preventive maintenance work order for all rail cars where they get cleaned on a certain interval. I don't remember the interval. It's 20, 30, 20 days, 18 days. That procedure needs to be updated because we've recently transitioned from cloth seats to vinyl seats. So that's an opportunity to update an existing SOP. The new SOP would be related to the Windermere Clean team. So at the end of the line, when the trains pull into Windermere Station, janitorial teams will get aboard the vehicles and they'll do some light cleaning to tackle the mess that occurs over the course of a standard service day. So sweep up crumbs if they've got time to mop, especially in the winter when salt and other things accumulate on the floor. Sort of the quality of life cleaning so that when it pulls out of Windermere Station, it's fresh for the customers. There's not a defined procedure for those activities, so we recommended to establish that.
If I could add.
Can I ask, sorry, go ahead.
Chairman Weiss, members of the board, this is Flonse Caver, Chief Operating Officer. So, Stephen, thank you for that presentation and description. So we're working very closely with the Internal Audit Department on this audit. It is one of our primary success outcomes, which is cleanliness of vehicles and cleanliness of facilities. And so as Stephen described, one of the areas of that recommendation is we may have a checklist for a person who goes into a rail station, let's just call it as 50 items that they must clean. But certainly as things happen, they may not be able to get to all 50. So what we're going to do is have all 50 on there, but we'll prioritize what are the most important items, and these are the items that the customers will most often see. But we also have a team that is what we call a major clean team, which will come and clean the place from top to bottom. And so they come to a station about every 20 days. And so we know that you don't have to get in every nook and cranny to make the station clean, because we're going to come by with this large team that's going to just clean the whole facility. And so that would be one of those things where we wouldn't need to hire more people. We just need to make sure that the process is, it is clean daily, and then it's going to get this major clean every 20 days. And so we're working through ways to be better. We have invested in our cleaning staff. So a priority in this year and last year has been to professionalize our cleaning staff with training. We have trained them through, I just lost the name of it, but it's an International Cleaning Association, which has helped us to think about things better. One example is certainly in our lives, we know that chemicals have gotten better to make cleaning easier over time. And so we're looking at modernizing our chemicals so that you're just not scrubbing with your back the whole way, that you actually have chemicals that can clean things better. And so we're looking at that. We're also investing in new and innovative machines that will make the cleaning happen faster. So just think a scrubber instead of a mop, but that's not the exact way it looks. But so we're working through a lot of those items. We have a group who is charged with professionalizing and increasing our clean. We're training the managers of those areas and the supervisors. And so we will have a professionalized cleaning staff where we're not just throwing money and people at the problem, but strategy and ideas at the problem.
That's helpful. Just clarifying question. So the stations and trains are cleaned daily, but then there's a deep clean, so to speak, that happens
Yes.
once a month, essentially.
Every station is cleaned daily, multiple times. Every train is swept up and spot mopped daily. Every bus is swept out and spot mopped daily. Every bus gets a deep cleaning. I'm going to say it's 9 days. It might be every 9 days or 10 days as the goal. And the train is about 18 days as the goal.
Got it. Thank you.
Just in terms of daily cleaning of buses and trains, is that pretty standard across, like for systems of our size, is just a daily clean?
Yeah, so the daily clean, I'll describe what it looks like. So every night when the bus comes into the garage, the position is a hostler who gets on. They will sweep the bus. They will get up major spots and wipe down any major things, just say soda on a seat. That happens daily, so that's like the daily servicing of the vehicle. And at every 9 or 10 days, it will be that they will use a water hose to scrub the floors, they'll scrub the windows, they'll scrub the areas. So this daily clean happens kind of like if you would picture a full service gas station back in the day, but that happens daily. And so that is the normal space. When it comes in and goes out, the expectation is it's fairly clean for the next day.
Yeah, is that typical of
Yes.
authorities? Okay.
Yeah, so the fuel island is situated so that that can occur, the way that the place is built, yes.
I think, are you asking in the industry? Is that standard
Yeah,
for the industry?
in other cities of our size or systems of our size is like, I'm just, I have 3 kids. So if somebody goes on a bus and they shouldn't be eating Oreos, but they ate Oreos, how are those, are those Oreos going to get cleaned up at midnight?
Yes.
Or are they going to get cleaned up earlier? So that, I was just wondering
Okay,
how other
versus earlier.
systems.
Most vehicles in major cities will not come back to the garage, and as they describe the rail system, in our rail system, because the bus is going to be at a station and lay over, we're able to come up with a new process, which is an intra-day cleaning. But most systems don't have an intra-day cleaning. The expectation is that if it's bad, that the operator will just kind of make the bus neat. But the job that does it is the midnight job when the vehicle comes back.
Just to piggyback it, to the question that you have about the industry, it's not the best answer, but it's the honest answer, is that all agencies are different. But to Doc's point, the kind of level setting is that if you have a minor cleanliness issue that can be wiped up without biohazard issue for the operator, then the expectation is that it can be addressed by a roving supervisor, a combination of the operator who's out in the field. If you have an issue that is a little bit more serious, say, for example, vomit on a vehicle or something to that extent, after a major game, it happens, right? The vehicle can be called in to like an ICC or the control center. It can be arranged for adjustment and swap to be able to go back into the garage. But at that point, that's when typically you having a little bit of an interruption in service. You've got to transfer customers or wait till it gets to the end of the line, wait till it gets to the end of that route. Then it can be adjusted if you have the manpower available. But there are operational procedures, SOPs, to be able to swap that vehicle out so that it's not a biohazard to the clientele or the company as well. I will say that if I can ask if it's the right time, Doc, if you could touch on the first bullet, because I know we've had extensive conversations with Audit and Tony, of course, about safety risk. Whenever we see safety, whether it's cleanliness or not, I want to make sure that we have a little bit of a robust conversation to be able to address it so that we're not interpreting it differently.
Yes, I can. Thank you, Ms. Terry. So in this audit, the audit department recognized that particularly in train stations, much of our cleaning happens at night when the customer level is low so that you can clean and mop the floors. But sometimes you would have people in the station, sometimes they're homeless or look to be unsheltered, and it makes our employees feel unsafe. And so Audit asked us to do a risk assessment to see what the risk is there. And I want to just make everybody understand that we have not had incidents with this, but certainly the person can feel unsafe. But we have not had an employee aggressively attacked. We've had some stuff, but not an attack. So don't think that it's just going wild. But we did a risk assessment. Our transit police, the federal government asks transit agencies to do an assessment of assaults on transit employees. We did a robust assessment on assaults on operators and came up with ideas that were recommended to fix. Our audit team asked us to do that assessment for frontline employees. The transit police conducted that assessment, came up with ways that we could help to, one, ensure that the employees felt safe, but then mitigate the potential that there's a risk that they would get harmed. One of those items that came out of it was in collaboration. So Ms. Elder asked about collaboration, was in collaboration with the rail district, who has the janitors, and the transit police, was to ensure that the rail cleaner called into transit police at which station they were at. So at 1 o'clock, I'm at Windermere. At 1:30, I'm at Superior. And that the transit police dispatch office will pull up the camera of the facility that they are in so that they can just have an eye on them and watch them. They will log that and then also make that call over the radio so that if there is a police in that area, that police can navigate to be close to that space and come by and see them while they're working. And so we're working in conjunction with the operation unit who's cleaning and transit police so that they can have that sense of safety. But also if something were to happen, somebody would be able to more quickly respond as opposed to finding out after an attack has happened for an elongated period of time. So we're working that project. It is one of the recommendations that Stephen mentioned, that many of the times when you get it, we've already started. And as a part of their audit, they've already told us they're going to come back and audit to make sure that, one, the employee is calling, two, the transit police is logging the call so that they could follow the person through the system. So all of our transit stations have cameras, and the transit police dispatcher next door can view them. So that's that front line. So the police did an assessment, came up with some mitigation. Certainly we can't have a police officer with all of them. And then we're going to work that plan. They're going to audit the plan to make sure that we're continuing that process. So it's been a good joint work with their recommendation, the Transit Police Department and the Operations Department.
Thank you, Florence.
I was going to ask.
Okay. Go ahead.
I know you all see me over here just like, yeah. This is great. Because audit is one of my favorite committees. This team is like one of my favorite. I won't say favorite. I got favorites all over all over.
You can say
Don't make them feel bad, Lauren.
Hey,
But
watch out.
it's great. I have favorites everywhere. But it's, now sitting here 3 years, sometimes when people, and I'm going to say this publicly, when you see unsatisfactory, a lot of this, my observation is like the goalpost keeps moving for us because we continue wanting to like excel and figure out how we can improve our services. And so because I've been sitting in audit for like 3 years, I have seen the ways, and transit ambassador is a really good example of that. We didn't even have transit ambassadors like 3 years ago, right? And so the difference between like getting transit ambassadors, creating the process, getting them onboarded, making sure that there is a way that they're engaging with people, and then going back and being like, yeah, this is great, but then also what could we be doing better, versus what we're seeing around the country is why the goalpost keeps moving. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, this is great. We're doing this great. We have body cameras, we have transit ambassadors, but also like, how could this process be better, right? And so I'm saying all that to say that what I've observed in my time on the board is that we've been continuously thinking about cleanliness as a really good example. Like, I know through operations and with our transit police that we're on it when it comes to cleanliness, but we're constantly thinking about like, yeah, if there is a biohazard, like, what does that process look like? Are we already handling it? And the answer is yes, we actually are handling that, but are there better ways that we could do it? Absolutely. And so I just want to say thank you for the work. I appreciate the line of questioning also from my fellow trustees, but also like, I think one of the great parts about this is, and I'm just putting it in context for whoever might be watching, that like, it says not as satisfactory, but it's just because we keep wanting to do better at our job. And we make these improvements on a regular basis in board meetings through the way we approve the work that we're doing, but we're constantly really sharpening ourselves around how we do the work, this kind of iron sharpening iron. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could, Ms. Welch, I think that was well said. So my division is probably the largest division that receives the audits, and our team looks at it as opportunities to continuously improve. So one of the items, since we're talking about cleanliness, it may be in the facility cleaning, but it said, hey, you need to track this stuff better broadly is what it said. And so our team is looking at janitorial specific software, right? So we have them now tracking their work, their maintenance in a vehicle maintenance software that's expecting you to change the oil and do other things. But there are businesses, our team actually went last week, Friday, to Penn State to look at a software that they use because they have buildings and facilities so that we could better understand and better track and use data to analyze what we're doing as opposed to a system that we're kind of forcing maintenance folks. And so we see it as continuous improvement and take the items and continue to work through them.
If I can ask, and I know we need to keep moving, Bob, if you can, I can task you with sending a copy of the snippet of the town hall from facilities maintenance. And Doc, I'm glad you mentioned that because you read my mind. Going out into the community at large in the industry, not just our industry, but janitorial, safety, whatever it is, we want to go out and see what the best practices are outside of transportation. And we also want to see what the best practices are outside of public transit. Much respect to our brothers and sisters who work in our own industry, but that's not enough. We have to be able to see what the airlines are doing. We have to see what other leaders in mobility are doing, what other leaders in other companies, private, public, or other. And so the team has been doing a lot of great work. There are conferences out there for that, whatever that is. And it's really nice. We had a fireside chat where we're really deep diving into a couple of the major projects that people just don't see. It's kind of what's under the hood. And we had a couple of folks, actually 4 of them. I want to see Jason Rosenlieb and Dave Basso and a couple other folks from that team really talked about what their experiences have been in going to conferences for facilities maintenance. and 4 cleaning. And it's really kind of lifting a veil, I think, from just, the assumption that you just take a rag and you just wipe it down with Lysol and you walk away. It's not quite that easy and not quite that simple. And there are ways to become better, stronger, faster, like you mentioned, and we're getting to that. And so when you see these kind of audits, you're absolutely right. It is ways to sharpen the toolbox. And to us, I think it's a challenge. And the team is rising to that challenge, but it comes a lot of culture change, not just here at RTA, but I'm talking about the industry, to be able to compete with each other, to understand that someone always does it better and that someone is not always you. Right? So find out who it is, find out what they do, and then figure out how to best them. And that's the goal here at RTA. So Bob, if I could ask you to send that. We had 4 fireside chats just as information, but if just send that one just as a teaser to the board to get them to understand what we're kind of looking at, and then we can always customize it so that you guys are included. That is an internal staff meeting. So with respectfully, we don't need you to be there, but we do need you to know what we're talking about so you can kind of get an idea. And this is a great, I think, introduction to that snippet so you don't have to watch a 3-hour meeting.
You're good? Okay. All right, back.
I will now pass it over to Darren Garlock to share projects in progress.
Thank you, Kylie. Audit Chair Weiss, members of the Audit Committee, General Manager, CEO Birdsong Terry, good morning. So the next few slides are the projects that are currently in progress and includes the different stages that they're in. Those that are highlighted, that I'll say yellow color, are new since our last Audit Committee. So this particular group are in the planning risk assessment phase. This is where we're conducting initial interviews and walkthroughs. We're reviewing existing documentation. We're creating process flowcharts, and eventually a risk control matrix, which identifies potential risks and the controls that are in place to mitigate those risks. Moving on to projects in progress that are in the fieldwork phase. In this phase, we're performing testing of internal controls and processes based on the results of the risk assessment that we performed. And then projects in progress in the last phase, which is the reporting phase. Once testing is complete, we hold an exit conference with key stakeholders and management where we'll discuss the results of the testing as well as any issues that were discovered and recommendations that we may have.
Could you go back to the field?
Sure. This one or the previous?
Yeah, go back one more. Yeah, I was looking at the fraud risk assessment. Is there something specific on this one that we were?
Yes, we both the global internal audit standards and our processes include just a general review of fraud risk within the organization, and we implement fraud risk studies and procedures in each audit that we conduct. So the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners publishes a fraud risk assessment with several, like a enterprise-wide modules that you can look at different business units within the organization for general fraud risks. And then, as I said, we can customize those risks for individual audits.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Okay.
All right, this is a progress chart for the different Buy America vehicle purchases that we're involved with. There have been a number of vehicle purchases that have come before the board lately. As part of the FTA's Buy America requirements, 70% of all rolling stock components and materials are required to be sourced from the United States, and final assembly of the vehicle must also take place in the U.S. And a fun fact, I'm actually headed to St. Cloud, Minnesota tomorrow to tour the New Flyer plant for the BRT pre-award.
It is awesome. I'll just tell you, it's fun. At least you're not going in the winter. That's when I went.
I just put up the weather today. And with that, I'd like to introduce Randy Bowles, who's going to discuss continuous auditing.
Good morning, Audit Chair Weiss, members of the Audit Committee, General Manager, CEO Birdsong, Terry, and guests. I'm not going to go through the 7 steps of continuous audit. I've went through those before, but I'll say it's a method of utilizing a series of scripts to perform auditing activities on a more frequent basis to identify risk and any exceptions for investigation by appropriate staff and management. And we have a list of some of the continuous audits that we do. It consists of nepotism, purchasing card, payroll, revenue reconciliation, and paratransit customer eligibility. And I'm going to focus on the customer eligibility on the next slide because that's something we only do once a year, and we did that last quarter. And these are some of the tests that we do. Deceased clients, post-mortem trips, previously flagged, duplicate clients, eligibility period, and time since last trip. And some interesting statistics. We have 11,400 clients, 9,000 active riders, and 100 clients that were deceased since last year, and 19 centenarians. I can never say that word. And revenue, any questions on that before I move on?
Can you flip back one? The previously flagged, those ones just kind of got tripped for further review after? Is that, I don't know what the previous flagged.
Those are ones that we flagged in last year's and provided to management, and just in the process of removing those from the database, they just got missed. So when we started this, it was a very, very long list, several hundred. So when management's going through and manually making these one-by-one changes, inevitably a few were done. But now as we progressed, I think the exact number was there were only 94 clients in the year 2024.
Okay, thanks.
So Mayor Weiss, our objective is to partner with paratransit management to help them optimize their databases so that when they're scheduling folks for rides and then they're managing folks' rides, that those systems are working to their highest efficiency.
Can you remind us, why were they flagged? Were they flagged for conduct or?
No, those flags are where the state of Ohio has a death database, and we reconcile our active list with those databases, and they're just flagged to deactivate those customers from the system to optimize the system and database.
So the flag is attached to deceased clients?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, revenue. It consists of mobile revenue, in-station revenue, that's credit, in-station revenue cash, fare box revenue cash, and mobile. I don't think I mentioned that. And this is for a rolling 12 months. All of it is under the 2% variance, and that's the tolerable rate between fare box and what is deposited to the bank. And what this chart really demonstrates is that all the money is collected, counted, deposited to the bank, and posted to the GL. And purchasing card, the top bar across the top shows the fourth quarter. It shows the total, average purchase, highest purchase, and the number of transactions. And it highlights certain tests, like documentation's missing, document review, non-US, holiday weekend, organization, schools, computer electronics, food and over 10,000. And just because something shows up on one of these tests doesn't, necessarily indicates anything's wrong. It's just when we sit down once a month, we just take an extra look at it to make sure everything, looks okay.
So for instance, just as an example, the over 10,000, that's a purchase for over
Yeah,
10,000?
yes.
Okay,
It
maybe
may require some approvals or special signatures. So we're looking at the expenditure and did it receive those signatures?
And payroll. This shows the highest dollar the dollar value for Q1 of 2025. Analyzes 7 pay periods, about 55,000 records, and the tests consist of excessive work hours, terminated employees, excessive overtime, and deductions less than 10%. And just like the previous slide, it doesn't mean anything is wrong, but when we sit down once a month, we look at these and give a little extra scrutiny. And it shows the data for 3 groups: FOP, non-bargaining, and ATU. Any questions? And these are the continuous auditing that's in development. I'm not going to read through all of them, but we'll kind of focus on dashboards. That's the one that we're, at least I'm really actively involved in, is trying to get more dashboards that we can present to the board. I think that's my last slide.
the continuing audit, the new ideas, are those just generated from operations? Are they sort of identified by you all? How do we?
I mean, it can be, if we do like a regular audit, sometimes that identifies things that, that lend themselves to a continuous audit. Because typically, if it's something that has a lot of databases in it, that lends itself to like a regular audit. Like the fuel expense audit, it has a lot of databases in it. So that's why that's a target to be, going forward, to be a continuous audit.
So Mayor, the theory is that if it's a risk area as we identify, and as Randy said, that it's comprised of a lot of data, old style auditing is to sample the data, and then you're subject to the sampling risk that you really don't focus on what you should. So the script allows us to look at 100% of the data and then evaluate where those risks truly are.
When we talk about favorites, this is, actually, this is one of them, because it's, yeah, I mean, the amount of data that you can, and how quickly you can review it and how often you're reviewing it's pretty impressive.
Oh, and I didn't mention mobile ticketing. That's another big one, along with the dashboards that we're really pushing, because mobile ticketing is actually bypassed cash as far as our biggest, revenue. Mm-hmm. So I hope to see that up here soon.
Great. Thank you.
I'll turn it over to Andrew.
Good morning, Chair Weiss, members of the Audit Committee, GM CEO Birdsong Terry. Just wanted to follow up with some ongoing technology projects. So we have the various ongoing projects, and then these are just the ones that I specifically work on and monitor kind of unofficially until we're ready to move them into an official audit state. So right now, we have the engineering department working on the consolidated train dispatch system upgrade. That project is moving along smoothly. Members of service quality and the engineering teams and Power and Way have traveled to California and Pittsburgh to view the system in action, to do factory acceptance testing. We are having some enhancements to the bid dispatch system. That was one of the projects in progress that Darren is working on system enhancements for various functions that are existing within the function. Currently, they are working on implementing operator absence tracking, which is now a very manual process, and moving it fully into the system. IT continues working on disaster recovery with the data center co-location. We are moving towards finally getting hardware into our co-location center. Once that happens, we'll be able to transfer some of our existing servers and application servers into that co-location center and eventually partner with co-location centers in Columbus as well to have that true disaster recovery. The paratransit scheduling upgrade, we are currently in the process of the Trapeze Pass application upgrade. Once that upgrade is complete, we will do a post-implementation audit of that, and we'll be taking a look at the general system upgrade as well as the implementation of a new Uber-like application allowing paratransit customers to schedule through an app on their phone. We have the IT Council, which is the reimagination to the IT Steering Committee. The council is made up of Dr. Kaver, Raj Gautam, and Tony Garofoli, and other members include our directors of IT and MIS, as well as myself. We're currently working through probably a dozen different governance documents to fully document the expectations and processes and procedures for our technology groups at the authority. Our MIS group is currently working on the implementation of their robotic process automation tool that has finally progressed all the way through procurement. The team has gone through a number of different trainings, and so hopefully in the near future they'll be able to start meeting with the business units and starting to get into that system and start automating processes primarily for the use of streamlining testing when changes come about, so patches, system upgrades, etc. Fluid management, just like Randy is finalizing the script on fuel expenses, our ITS group is also working on the fluid management system upgrades, so that includes both the tank monitoring systems as well as the dispensing equipment. MIS and HR are working through the process of developing an RFP for a new learning management system. As we all heard today, a number of recommendations that we have through a number of our projects include updating training, making sure it's tracked, and that's the goal of the new learning management system. Centralized repository for all training, tracking exactly what employees have been able to go through, and then even developing learning and progression paths so we can target, I want to go for this new job, these are the types of things I need to go for. As always, we have various infrastructure updates, just running new cabling, updating our signals, new servers, infrastructure hardware. And then finally, our fare update projects. We currently have our consultant for our ticket vending machines, as well as working with Masabi on the account-based ticketing and fare capping implementations. And I'll turn it back over to Tony.
Thank you, Andrew. Rounding out the presentation. So under special requests and emerging issues, we have 3 projects that we're looking at. And you'll see that they are either in the reporting phase or in the fieldwork phase. As they complete, we'll meet with management, and then we will present those to the board in a future committee meeting. Under external audit coordination, the state auditor's office is starting to shut down their field work for the 2024 financial and single audit. They're on target to meet with the Board of Trustees in June. So we are working with them on a number of their line items, and with the accounting department. The State of Ohio Department of Transportation has the rail oversight program. We're working closely with them to coordinate efforts, and working with Steve Paganoff and with the Safety Department on some of what he calls PTASP audits, the Public Transit Agency Safety Plan. And then finally, where Molly had said earlier that we're working with the Federal Transit Administration on the project management oversight consultant for the rail car replacement program. Status of outstanding follow-up. Stephen mentioned in the metric earlier that we're trying to get those 24 days or less closing out outstanding follow-up. So we do have a audit management system. Stephen alluded to that. And just to reemphasize both our global internal audit standards and our own internal processes, we're working closely with management to follow up and close out on outstanding audit recommendations. And certainly, as Ms. Birdsong Terry said, with her help as needed, we will go to her for help. Other projects, we're working with the procurement department very closely. The annual healthcare expenses exceed approximately $32 million. I'm just told recently by our chief financial officer that this is really kind of trending up in 2025. So it's an area that we want to take a look at with audit. And we will be hiring a claims audit specialist to work with us and our third-party administrators to look at our claims and benefits. Just other projects that we're working on, we obviously manage a fraud hotline. We've talked about that before. And then a number of steering committees where we can share our broad knowledge of the organization with some of those management objectives. Staff training for the first quarter, Stephen talked about in one of our metrics, our employee development metric. And we take full advantage of the various local internal audit, fraud, and information systems chapters in Northeast Ohio, to train our employees. That concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions from the board? Go ahead.
It's a specific one. It's not a global question, but just on the IT, there was the paratransit scheduling. And I was, first of all, thank you all. Like, there is so much going on here. That's the one I honed in on just because I thought it was a great example of where customer experience is really important. So it's not just about how the technology is functioning or whether it's functioning, but also how the customer is it working for the customer? So even if the technology is working, does it meet the customer's needs? So I was wondering if you'd just spend a second on how you think about that as it goes through the audit process, how you work with others in the authority to just, or is it very isolated to IT? I'm just trying to understand how we think about whether or not the new app and the new technology is successful or not.
Do you mind if I start, Andrew? So one of our objectives will be to put ourselves in the shoes of the customer so that we will use the app as if we are a customer. And going as far as creating an ID, we have taken advantage of non-peak periods of time and rode the system as secret shoppers. So we will certainly utilize that process to evaluate this Uber-style app and the benefits it's going to bring to our customers. In terms of optimizing our system, we talked about that before with making sure that our databases are efficient for scheduling and for how reports are generated and so forth. And then what Andrew was alluding to earlier was the system is going through a multi-generational upgrade, okay, where new features and functions are going to be available to not just our customers, but to our work staff so that they can manage the process better. So with that, Andrew, anything you want to add?
I think you covered most of it. Just from the IT side of things, typically the audits focus on the implementation of the program itself, and then we do focus on those end user portions. But then typically most of those end user items come through in a number of other audits, such as we have the customer complaints audit going on, where they're taking a look at all the different complaint systems. So whether that be through the online forms for big bus, rail, or paratransit, and as well as we regularly get the feedback at the board meetings from our writers. But typically the IT side of things is just, are they doing the technology sides properly? And then are we losing any functionality? How is that functionality changing? And then how is that functionality changing, impacting the customers?
Thank you. And remind us of the timeline for the new, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the paratransit app.
So I don't think the project managers are in here, but the timeline for the system upgrade itself, I believe, is about mid-August. And then once that is complete, they move into the I don't know what the application itself is called, but the Uber-esque application will start
I'm just
towards the
thinking
end of
about-
that process.
Okay,
And
got
that'll
it.
take another few months.
Just to
really
clarify that that system upgrade must occur before the launching of that app. So that's, it's a predecessor event.
Thank you.
Can we go back for just a moment to the healthcare? So is this a proposed audit, or is this just ongoing?
Sorry, Mayor Weiss. This is an audit that we've done in the past. We have a new third-party administrator that's been with the processing the authority's claims for the past 2 years now. So we typically allow a couple of years of claims to process. And those are prescription drugs. Those are medical claims. As our employees seek medical benefits. So the idea is that the authority has a benefit plan, and its compliance is the third-party administrator processing claims in compliance with that benefit plan, whether that be for prescription drugs or for medical services. So that takes there's a need for some specialized work. You have diagnostic codes and procedure codes as published by the American Medical Association. So partnering with a claims audit services group, they have that expertise that can work with us to make sure that, for this 32 million plus that we spend each year in medical claims expense, that is processed in compliance with our plans and contracts with our third-party administrators.
And where's Raj or Tony? We self-insure?
Yes, we are self-insured.
Okay. And then have excess coverage?
That's correct. With excess liability coverage, correct.
Okay.
George, did you have any additional information from HR?
No, everything's correct. I just want to make sure that we also noted that for Tony's audit, our benefits and compensation manager, Nadine DeJesus, is on that panel to be able to evaluate the various vendors.
Yes.
Thanks, George. I didn't see you hiding back there in the corner. Okay. Any other questions or comments for?
Just a quick comment on the paratransit. I met with operations and customer experience, paratransit operations, last week. We usually go through, at least on a monthly, 6-week sort of basis, to go through what's going on in paratransit. I'm just giving you a forewarning. You will probably see a dip in on-time performance for those paratransit trips. I know that we've got the traction quarterly coming up, the debriefing of that. So we'll go into more detail there. But I just wanted to give you that update that we are seeing the on-time performance suffer as the ridership goes up. And I want to say maybe a month or so ago, I'm kind of looking in Mike's direction, we talked about the paratransit vans being brought up to 100 from 80. I think it was in the capital plan, you went through it, right? So we are looking at kind of informally trying to build ourselves up as the fourth provider, is the way we describe it to ourselves, because right now we have 3 third-party vendors. And then we are, thank you. And they are there in Indira, which is hard to say because I almost want to say my own name. And they're in Ohio here. But we are having additional vehicles to be able to start to bridge that gap. We're also playing around with different ways to up the manpower as it's in accordance with our financial outlook, because we always have to make sure when we have a new body, you've also got to have a new cost. But thinking about ways to get creative with those kind of things so we can kind of bridge that gap. We are embarking upon summer, and my request to the team was to also look at what happens to the limo drivers, what happens to the school drivers, what happens to the campus drivers that kind of go out for the summer and still need to work, right? Are there ways to be able to get creative, to be able to kind of pad our manpower as our vehicle count goes up as well? There is always a question about why do we still hover around 52%, 54% of the service and still outsource the other. A lot of the answer is the manpower is just tough. But there's always a way to figure it out, as we've evidenced through the HR department in getting the operator shortage kind of truncated. So we'll work on the same with paratransit. But there are ways to also improve the experience, whether it's through the app and scheduling and that kind of thing, so that people feel that they have a quality experience when they do have a trip with us. So we'll bring more information to you, but just wanted to give you that forewarning that the paratransit also is becoming a more renewed focus by the customer experience folks. And Nick Bigger can talk a little bit more to that, but we are diverting some of their resources to be able to help the paratransit management figure out ways to be creative in times of trouble.
Great, thank you. Anything else for the good of the order today? Seeing none, well, thank you very much, as always. Very thorough and detailed presentation, so thank you for all the good work. All right, with that, we stand adjourned.